You're going to get from me 30 years of school leadership and a pragmatic, practical, grounded view. I'm sorry it's not going to be a highfalutin research-based one in the sense that I haven't got the same background as Becky, but I will draw on Becky's and other people's research because I think it actually illustrates that very well. I've never worked for a minister or a secretary of state who doesn't believe that education is important for social equality. They all believe it, and all the ones I've worked with are very passionate about it, and in some ways it's driven them for that particular post and that ministerial position. But I put it to you quite often, some of their policies have a perverse disincentive and don't do what they think they will. So let's focus on a couple at the moment. One of the main structures of many policies, and we heard from Nick this morning, is on structural change and choice. And actually I support that. I do think that choice is important. I do think academies are a good thing. I'm not an evangelist for academies, but they're here to stay. And when they're an academy group, such as the one that I'm privileged to lead, they are dealing with the most challenging youngsters in some of the most challenging settings, and that's what academies were set up to do. But structural change has happened very quickly. 64% of the secondary school system last month were academies, 70% of primaries. In 2010, there were just 203 academies. There are now 5,500. And that choice, I put it to you, is bewildering. UTCs, free schools, independent schools, academies, and let's remember academies sponsored or converted. Then you've got a range of studio schools and other provision. Actually, it's really quite complicated. And it assumes that parents and those very people we want to support with the choice to make social mobility work are the ones able to make that choice. And yet we know, and the Runnymede Trust over 10 years ago pointed out that the rhetoric of choice actually can sometimes not achieve that because it's too bewildering. And there's a rhetoric reality gap. And actually the very parents that we want to make positive choices either choose not to or find the information difficult to make or don't have the motivation to make that choice. And in some ways the choice system colludes to make sure there are losers as well as winners. And you've heard it in the media about sharp-elbowed middle-class parents, but the reality is the social and cultural capital of the middle classes can marginalise the economically weaker parents. And then there's the choices where a lot of my academies are. Geographically isolated academies on a coastal area or in a small deprived ex-industrial town where that may be the only school of choice. And that's why academies are a good thing. And I have to say that Ormiston Academies Trust and other trusts do make a difference. They do not have a silver bullet. It is not a panacea, to use the other sort of cliches. But the reality is that actually some of our schools do very well. Ormiston Bolingbroke, which the Prime Minister went to a few months ago, 63% free school meals, 62% A-Star-C, including English Maths this year, 39% before it was an academy. In 2014, all of its sixth formers went on to university, the first generation ever to go on to university. And we've invested, with the support and advice actually of Connor and the Sutton Trust, in an Access Star, an ex-Oxbridge comprehensively educated graduate who went on to do Teach First, who's full-time employed by us now, who mentors and supports our youngsters. Because I believe passionately the only way we're going to make this change is if this generation of pupils are able to make the parental choice and are able to achieve to be able to actually disrupt the system. So this year, triple the number of youngsters from Ormiston Academies Trusts have applied to Oxbridge or medicine. Last year, a record number went to university, and this year, a record number of youngsters applied to higher tariff universities, most of them first generation choosing to go to HE. And we have a pledge, an oak pledge, fun enough, having a dinner tomorrow night to raise money if anybody wants to. We're saying that all our youngsters will have the opportunity to do a residential trip, field trip, outward bound experience. All our youngsters will take part in competitive sport. All our youngsters will have the opportunity to see live, high-quality competitive sport, live, high-quality classical music, live theatre. etc., etc. Because we need them to have the resilience, the social and cultural capital so that they can make the choices of the future. That's what drives me. It's what drives most of the people and people I recognise in this room, because actually I do believe education can be the social equaliser, but only if you get the choices right and if the parents, who often aren't able to, are able to make that choice. To finish with, David Reynolds said, certainly 10 years ago, Professor David Reynolds at Exeter, if you could choose, and many of you heard this before, your school or your parents, which would make the biggest difference to your outcome? And it's your parents' interest in education. I am who I am because my father every day said, what did you learn at school? I do think that the report today is very timely. I asked the Secretary of State personally, and I'll ask her again, how do we get the best teachers, the best principals and heads into the areas of greatest need? And I put it to you that our existing policies, accountability framework and systems and funding model don't necessarily make that easy. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much.